Why is the skeptic community populated with militant anti-theists, mindlessly parroting anecdotal, non-scientific bullshit? The answers to this and more right now on Freinded FOREVER.
Great question. I do not know, but it sounds like a serious problem that must be dealt with immediately.
Wait, why am I talking like that? I might be a douche, but I'm not a melodramatic one.
I'm Batman.
Okay, I don't really think Freinded or Adam is a douche, although I do think he's profoundly wrong when it comes to religion, and I'll explain why in a moment. However, this video wasn't intended to be a response video to Adam. Before he made this video, I had been mulling over these same types of questions he brings up in his video for a few days, and I planned on making a video outlining my thoughts on the matter. Adam's video is just a convenient way of addressing the same subject, and who knows, maybe he'll watch it and I'll be able to convince him to rethink his position on anti-theism. Let's get started, shall we?
Changing their minds now to accommodate a growing mountain of evidence supporting what evolutionary biologists and anthropologists and social scientists call the superorganism model of religious psychology.
Alright, so Adam has read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Righteous Mind, and I think he would openly admit that it has heavily influenced the way he thinks about atheism, anti-theism, and religion. I've also read the book and I highly recommend it. If you haven't already, picking it up isn't a bad idea if you're interested in how we think of morality and why we think that way. The superorganism Adam is referring to is the way Jonathan describes our species in The Righteous Mind. In the book, he says we're 90% chimp and 10% bee. In other words, we're 90% selfish, among other traits, but we also have a hive mind mentality at times, which allows us to work together in very large groups. This in turn has led to our domination of the planet. But here, I'll let Jonathan explain it in his own words.
Obviously, yes. Our behavior is much like that of other primates until about 600,000 or 700,000 years ago. We domesticate fire, we get hearths, we get division of labor between the sexes, we get groups cooperating to hunt large game. Once you get that, of course, you're going to get competition between groups for territory at very least. So now imagine that human groups in Africa before the dispersion are all living in this way. And might it be the case that some tribes do it better than others because of cultural inventions for sure, but might it also be the case that certain genetic mutations make some people more tribal? Their minds are just better at making something sacred, circling around it, trusting each other, basically being fit for gang warfare, let us say. So I think when you look at it this way, it's rather obvious that human genes have come down to us not just because some people beat out their neighbors, but because some groups beat out other groups. If this is the case, if we did evolve by multi-level selection, then we would expect to find some groupish instincts, some things buried in the human mind, part of human nature, that makes us groupish. Monuments to heroes, we designate battlefields and other significant lands as sacred, we won't allow development on them. So we do all these things that are hard to explain as adaptations that helped one individual beat out the guy next to him or the woman next to him. They don't make any sense for that. But boy, do they work well if you think about groups competing with groups. And this has led me to formulate what I'm calling the hive psychology hypothesis. That is, that human nature is 90% chimp and 10% bee. In recent times, by recent I mean sometime in the last 500,000 years, and especially the last 100,000 years, we were shaped by some level of group versus group competition, just as beehives are shaped by group versus group competition. And this gives us a kind of a hive-ish, groupish overlay that has not been appreciated by the social sciences or evolutionary biology. That's my big message today. This is the big new idea that I think is going to transform the way we think about human nature. We're 10% bee, and that has not been appreciated. Religions do, in fact, solve free rider problems, and they do, in fact, help groups cohere.
And this idea was bothering me. Had I gotten it wrong? It certainly wouldn't be the first time I'd been wrong. Maybe human beings did need religion, or a certain percentage of them anyway. I often hear the saying popularized by Richard Dawkins, who said, "Indeed, organizing atheists has been compared to herding cats, because they tend to think independently and will not conform to authority." And this got me to thinking about how things like rituals, community church gatherings, and groups in general don't hold much appeal for me. I tend to avoid crowds of people, and although I sometimes enjoy the architectural beauty of a church, I don't yearn for the community those buildings often represent to people. And maybe I, and many of my fellow atheists, were the exception and not the rule. Perhaps the vast majority of our species needs religion to satisfy that B mentality. I wondered whether, instead of being 10% B, maybe I was something like only 6%. I mean, while I don't enjoy large crowds and I'm usually content with my own company, or that of my fiancé and our 2 beautiful pups, I can work in a group. In fact, my job requires it, so I know I'm capable of hiving when necessary. But maybe the urge wasn't as strong in me as for many others. These types of questions plagued me, and so I went back and read the relevant parts in The Righteous Mind again, and I began to explore the ideas running rampant in my head. If I was wrong, if our species relied on religion and needed it to build healthy, functioning societies, then I might have to rethink the work I do on this channel. And Adam echoes my doubts in his video here.
Religions are here because they serve a psychological need. Even if we could make them illegal, socially stigmatize them, whatever, that need in some people, unless we satiate it by other means, is not going anywhere. Even in very secular societies where religion is greatly reduced, some form of organized religion still persists. Many anti-theists will point to the prosperity of these secular nations as some kind of proof that religions cause harm. But once again, they get the causal relationship backwards. These societies are prosperous because of strong, economically and politically inclusive institutions, delivering safety and security to a broad population, and in turn displacing the need for the psychological safety and security religion delivers as a last resort.
Now, I think Adam is wrong here. While some atheists might do that, I don't usually point that out to show how harmful religion is, but to put to rest the notion that you need religion to have a functional, healthy, and generally happy society. I usually bring it up in response to a theist asserting that we need religion, and that atheism only leads to things like nihilism, communism, and in some cases fascism. These secular and non-religious countries show that we don't necessarily have to believe in ancient supernatural stories. Second, if what Adam says here is true, and that the more prosperous a country becomes, the less reliant they become on religion, then I would say that's exactly the sort of world I and many other anti-theists are advocating for. I'm not advocating for a world in which we lock religious people up or physically prevent them from believing in God. I want countries around the world to grow more prosperous, to become less reliant on superstitious nonsense, and begin to think critically about why they believe these things to be true. I'm fully aware that it's not going to happen completely in my lifetime, but if I can add even a little bit to the likelihood that future generations will move away from believing in supernatural beings, then that's good enough for me. That's why I'm building this channel. That's why I pour my time into making videos. Noel Plum also made an excellent response video to Adam. I'll leave a link in the description box, and if you haven't already, I hope you'll consider subscribing to his channel. At the time of this recording, he was only 160 subscribers away from 30,000. Maybe we can help push him over that milestone. But Noel said one thing that I agree with wholeheartedly. I often hear the argument that no matter what we say or do, people will just believe in God no matter what, and that I and other anti-theists are wasting our time challenging these beliefs. I often hear atheists making the same argument, even though they don't believe God is real. I understand when theists defend their faith, but I have no idea why someone like Adam here, who professes to value both truth and empiricism, would defend something he openly admits isn't supported by empirical evidence, and doesn't believe to be true. With that out of the way, here's what Noel said in his response video.
And even in terms of two religions, right? Even in terms of different religions, some religions lead to a great deal more irrational thinking and irrational behaviour than other religions. So this idea that, wow, we might as well throw our fucking hands up in the air. It doesn't matter what people think. There's going to be the same amount of irrationality in terms of their thinking or behaviour. It's time for you to evidence that, because that's a pretty fucking major claim to make.
Humans rally around a flag, a cause, an idea with such ease, and religion is just one of these forces for people to rally around. Where is the evidence eliminating organized religion will eliminate dangerous between-group conflict? If injustice still exists, if people are unhappy with their governments, or their status in the world, or their shared future prospects, people will unite with or without religion, because our groupish selfishness is not facilitated by religion, but is a product of our genes, our biology, our social psychology. It's an inescapable product of us.
And you can accomplish those things without the untrue supernatural nonsense commonly associated with religions and belief in God. You can rally around a sports team, around your family, around a community center, around a book club, around your country, and you can sacralize concepts such as those found in the US Constitution. I would argue many Americans already do. In some ways, the Founding Fathers are spoken of in reverent tones. Our world is full of heroes and people we could describe as saints. Our universe is full of wonder, and non-religious people are able to take comfort in that wonder, in the sheer beauty of our world, and many of us report having spiritual experiences that aren't connected to some sort of supernatural nonsense. Religion may be one outlet or way of expressing those desires and feelings, but there are other ways. We don't need to rely on comforting lies. I, for one, believe our species is fully capable of shrugging off the shackles of religion and embracing other means of attaining spirituality, a sense of community, and all the other things religion currently takes undeserved credit for. And those means won't have to be based on things that are demonstrably not true.
Anti-theists start with the assumption that religion is bad or evil. I'm sure to them it is. But this assumption shapes all of their thinking on the topic. I don't deny that religious organizations, like any large, multifaceted institutions, have their problems.
I do think religions are bad, not because I think they're evil, but because they're not true, Adam. The long and the short of it is that despite my doubts, I remain an anti-theist. I still want to see our species move away from belief in the supernatural, and I see no real reason why we can't replace the, quote, good bits with equally beneficial concepts and philosophies that don't rely on supernatural beliefs. But since Adam seems to hero worship Jonathan Haidt, I'll end this video with him admitting that you don't need the supernatural beliefs to create a cohesive society. Take care and cheers.
So my view is that the key innovation for us wasn't supernatural beliefs, it was sacralization. Once we develop the ability to treat things as though they are infinitely valuable and circle around them, that's the key thing. That's what you need for social cohesion. Do you need gods? Not necessarily. People can sacralize helping the poor. They can sacralize justice. They can sacralize freedom. As long as you have people able to sacralize things and then be sort of irrational about it, you can get a lot of these social benefits. Now, then you also have the competition and the rivalry.